What's up, everybody? It's Alex from Heavy New York calling from the quarantine zone again. And on the phone, we got Byron and Roger from Numenorean. Thank you guys for being here.
Thanks, Alex. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, it's
glad to be doing something here.
What's up?
Glad to be doing something here in quarantine.
Yep, good old quarantine life. Again, nothing is more metal than interviewing a black metal band in the heart of a quarantine zone in New York City. But it's so awesome to have you here. So the first thing is always first, Adore, which was very high up on our top albums of the year for 2019. I was curious to how the making of this record was. What was the thought process? Were you just making a direct follow-up to Home? Was this meant to be a new start for Numenorean? Like, what was the idea going into the making of this album?
I don't know. I think it was a lot more mature, I think. Whereas, I've kind of sat on this for a while trying to figure it out. And I don't know if you feel the same, Byron, but it's like Home was very much a product of that genre, if that makes sense. And whereas The Door, we really, I think, trusted ourselves a lot more and trusted the influences a lot more, and we kind of made our own sound. Whereas Home, really, we were kind of stuck with the chains of that post-black metal movement, I feel. Like, I still love the album, but I feel like Adore is a lot more us, if that makes sense.
Definitely, not pigeonholed.
Home was more nihilistic, and I think we were a lot more depressed back then too.
Yeah.
So
young.
That's kind of a cumulative of all the years of playing music, and that's what came of it, because that was my first full-length album, and everyone else, I think that was our first two, besides our drummer at the time. But it just kind of, 10 or 15 years of trying to just play music, and that all just came to a head then. And then once we kind of got that out of the way and could solidify ourselves as knowing that we could create something like that, then it kind of opened a door for a door opening a door.
Oh, fuck, here we
go. We just started and the puns are rolling in.
Yeah.
Well, I've noticed that there was many different emotions incorporated on this album. Like a song like Portrait of Pieces was very different from a song like Horizon, which was very different from a song like Regret, which is obviously very different from a song like Stay or Coma. Was it fair to say that all of you guys were feeling many different emotions with the making of this album?
Oh yeah, big time. And I think that with a lot of us, we had an interview in Europe, and Byron brought up a really good point that, even some of us are still dealing with a lot of the things we were exploring on that album, whether it's depression or addiction or, anything of that darker aspect of the human landscape. And, I've kind of dealt with it in a lot of ways, and I've kind of moved past that stuff, but there are still a few of us whose emotions are in there and are still very much a part of who they are. Which makes playing it live every night is like a fight, man. Every night we go through those same emotions, and it's very representative of who we were at that point, I think.
Yeah, statement of time, and I think you can hear it with how different the songs are. It's still cohesive, I think, as a full album, but you have so many different emotions that kind of everyone was going through that was only expressed because that album had a lot more influence with everyone in it, as opposed to maybe just one or two people writing the music, where Home was more singular that way. And Adore kind of, there were just so many different expressions that we kind of allowed everyone to do, which made it a much more free-flowing album as opposed to Home.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I know you guys aren't the vocalists, but I'd imagine that there was almost kind of an essence of self-realization in this album, right? Because with the lyrics to a song like Horizon, with the chant of screaming, "I finally found myself again," which I think is the best chant in this genre ever. And then I feel like Adore had a bridge between something more optimistic with "Paint love on my eyes," but then following it up with a line like "My body is murder." It almost seems like there was almost an essence of self-realization with this album, right? Was that maybe a subject matter in it?
Oh, totally. Big time. Yeah, I think that, for a lot of us, too, a lot of us worked on the lyrics together, which was really cool because we had kind of started and finished each other's thoughts as we were going through kind of the same things. And we definitely wanted to make something that was a lot more, like I keep going back to mature, but when you're young and you're writing like really sad stuff, you're kind of single-minded, right? Whereas as you get older, you can look at things and say, okay, well, it is kind of lazy to be apathetic and it's not really going to change anything. So it's best that, you find a way to get up and start living again. And that's really what I feel that whole song's about, is really just empowerment and, really, again, trying to find yourself again. And, I feel whole again, I feel low again, is that constant struggle of being so crippling or having crippling depression and then going to mania. You know what I mean? So it's definitely got that through line of optimism. I don't know if you feel the same way, Byron.
Yeah, absolutely. Just even being older and stuff and having all the experience, and it's like, the first album was really nihilistic and I want to die, and now this one is much more like, hey, we're too old to kill ourselves now. How do we get through this?
It's too old to die young, right?
Too old to die young. That's a great that was a Hard Times headline or something like that.
That's the next album title.
Yep. Well, I thought the instrumentation was really good as well as demonstrating the emotion. Like, in terms of, like, the guitar work that's incorporated in here, do you guys have, like, a theoretical element? Like, what scale or chord progression you're working off of? Or is the instrumentation, are you guys more self-taught and you improvise with your instruments more?
Oh, yeah. I fucking suck at guitar. I'm like the biggest... I'm very, I guess emotional in that sense, when I first joined the band, I didn't even know really how to use a guitar pick, so I had to learn from really good musicians like Byron on how to play, and that's the way he kind of taught me, is to just play through emotion, learn some patterns, but then just it's all feel, and I think that keeps it exciting. Hey, Byron?
Yeah, I don't know too much about theory. I can't speak for the rest of the guys, but it's more so, figuring out all your patterns, or I know where scales are and whatnot, but using the mindset of not focusing on any theory, any knowledge that you should know, and more so based off your emotions, your patterns, and what you've kind of just let your mind wander to after just trying so hard to find different stuff, and then all of a sudden you find something that works right for you, and then explore that to its fullest. Yeah. I've been playing guitar since I was 12, and I only know 5 songs. I know Michael Jackson's Beat It and 4 Metallica.
And Blink-182.
Yeah, and Blink-182. I know the first part.
Yeah.
But by using that and not having or being able to just block all the walls that are there and just go wherever you want, they allowed us to just try to play with emotion. You fuck up a lot, you don't know where you're going, but one time you do find that golden idea by not having restrictions, and I find it served us well.
Yeah, it's more like I find it's like a conversation. It's more conversational, It's less like, okay, guys, key of A or whatever. It's more so like we're having a conversation with these, these riffs, and during conversations you hit, roadblocks in a conversation, and it's time to, either get onto a different topic or walk away and end the conversation completely. It's very, very freeing that way.
Yeah.
And looking at the guitar as a way is, someone told me this when I was really young, where they said, all you're doing with the guitar is you're just manipulating it to do what you want it to do. So once I figured that out, then it was much easier for me to go, how do I find this part I'm looking for, and then just going over and over with different patterns and ways of playing until I found something. And it might not work for everyone, but I know it's served us really well, where it's way more honest, and you're not thinking too much about anything else but finding that exact feeling that you have in your head.
Yeah.
So if we were a tech death band, we wouldn't work, but it works. Works for us right now.
Yeah. Well, it almost seems like with the emotional elements that you carry into your instrumentation, it's fair to say that you guys try to capture a moment, right?
Yes.
Oh, hell yeah. Yeah.
Every section has to say something. If if you look at our Dropbox folder, there's like millions of ideas that don't work because they don't say something each part. So it takes a long time to craft, but we know it's worked for us when every single moment has its place.
Yeah. Well, do you find it the longer you work on a song, because like you have a song like Portrait of Pieces that's 8.5 minutes. So like, do you find it like the longer you work on something, the harder it is to sort of like maintain that moment in a way?
That's a good question. Yeah, in a way, I think it's important that once you start getting to that point where you're kind of kicking a dead horse, it's really important to step away and just start writing something maybe that's not even in the same realm or world of what you were previously in. Like, even Adore, it started off as like a post-punk kind of song. Like, remember that, Byron? Like Dawn or whatever? Yeah. And that was like probably a year or two before we even really sat down and came back to that initial riff. And it's completely different.
Yeah, because what happens, like, we had Adore, and I didn't have the very end, that lyric part that you said you liked the best. That part didn't come, the whole section didn't come till we were just stuck on it for a while, and then all of a sudden it came out, and we were playing like, oh, this sounds really good. And it's like, oh, it's that one riff in that Dawn song that we wrote years ago. So it all kind of, even throwaway songs or songs that we get stuck on, they all come back in a way, and it makes sense. So it's like, it's still in the realm of everything, and if that part makes sense, it'll come back to you at the right time. If not, it's just forever into the Dropbox folder.
Yeah.
The catacombs.
the riff arsenal, that's what I call it. Yeah. And speaking of craziness, for anybody listening, if you're hearing a lot of background noise, I live by 5 hospitals, so there's choppers and ambulances driving everywhere. So please excuse the possible background
War zone.
Yep.
Yeah, there's a guy working a saw outside my house, and I don't know why he's working. It's quarantine.
That's not nearly as cool, Byron. No.
Now, do you recommend, in order for maybe a listener to get the full context of the entire album, should they start off with Nocebo and end with DDHS? Like, should they listen to this record from the first song to the last song, or do you think that maybe a listener can approach this from any angle?
I think, okay, maybe that's actually a better way of putting it. Whereas, like, with Home was a lot more conceptual, and we were kind of like, oh man, this should be like one long song, beginning to end. And then when we got to writing Adore, I think we especially with Josh, who recorded, mixed, and mastered it, was like, we need to like try and work on something that's catchy. You need, like, especially in this day and age where everyone's got such crazy ADD, and it's not their fault. I mean, like, we have so much streaming and shit thrown at us that you kind of need to have, in a way, cover both avenues. Like, you need songs now that are catchy, that are 4 minutes of either like pure chaos or some uplifting beat, and then if you get them fish hooked, then they can come to the album and really start to dig in. So I would definitely recommend listening from top to bottom, but I mean, there's still like some songs in there where you can kind of get a sense of the whole album. I feel I don't know, Byron, like, I think it's, I don't know, do you feel that? Like,
yeah, I think there's agree with what you said, and also that a lot of them can be standalone songs, unlike Home, where Home kind of had one emotion through it, and you listen to the whole album as one long song, where this one kind of works as both. We still tried to make it so every song was bookend to each other, and it all was arranged that way, but it's something where you can jump in at any time, I think, and for me anyways, and if people can feel that way, then I think that's a really good testament for our ADD society now, where I can't remember the last time I listened to a full album.
Yeah. Well, I'd imagine, because, like, if you're going to listen to Portrait of Pieces, you might want to start off with Nocebo first, and if you're going to listen to Coma, you might want to listen to Stay before that, and Alone almost kind of serves as like an interlude to Adore. So I feel like you have kind of like the best of both worlds in that aspect.
Well, we're doing something right.
Yeah, and I definitely think it's just, it's super important. I remember watching an interview with Billy Corgan, and he was talking about, like, Melancholy, the album Melancholy, which was like 2 CDs. He's like, you can't do that anymore. Like, it's just not feasible in a financial standpoint to do that. to release that much material all at once, you know? So the world is so drastically changed, even from the 90s, that you kind of have to be aware of that. And when you're writing stuff, keep that in mind. Like, even if you are going to make like 10 to 12 minute songs, it's kind of important, I feel, to keep the listener rewarded and engaged with, whether it's like a really catchy lick or, I don't know, something that kind of you can encapsulate the entire album into a moment.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, you don't want to be you don't want to be a band where somebody could show up 40 minutes late to your set and they make it before you get to the first chorus. Like,
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Unless you're like Sun or something, you know?
Yeah. Oh, they put on an amazing show.
Oh, I can't even imagine.
Yeah. They played at St. Vitus, and remember, their fog machines are enough to fill up a stadium. So,
Jesus.
So just keep that in mind.
That's outrageous.
Yeah. Now, you ready for the most difficult question of the whole interview?
Absolutely.
All right. How do you know when a song is done?
Uh-oh.
When I say it's done, God damn it.
When the bearded men sing.
Yeah.
When the bearded men sing?
Yeah, I don't know, man. That's a good question. I think that's kind of like the eternal question. You know, how is something done? One of my favorite quotes, I can't even remember who it is, like some French architect from the 1700s or something. But he said, a great architect knows when he's done, not when there's more to add, when there's nothing left to add, but when there's nothing left to take away.
Yep.
So I think that's super important. It's just really trimming the fat. Because I know I have the problem where if I find like an idea that I really like, I'll just keep putting onto it. I'll keep adding. I'll add an octave or a harmony or, you know, another guitar. And that's really not necessarily important. You know, so I think if you can get it down to its bare bones and what's important for the communication of the emotion, I think that's when you're close to saying it's done. But even if you release it, you could talk to anyone. Like, even the Beatles, I'm sure, would go back and be like, oh, fuck, I wish I did this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So maybe it's never truly done. I don't know.
Well...
Yeah, you can get stuck, right, with going, oh, yeah, keep adding more and more the more you sit on it. So it's good to definitely have breaks from it. And even when we went to the studio, I know we had about it's like 80% of the album that was finished. And we knew we wanted to kind of leave it a little bit open so we could go there and just have a fresh new take on everything, and then kind of knowing then when the songs were done. And then I do my old test that seems to work pretty good. I get super hammered drunk and I listen to the songs, and if it feels good and I feel fulfilled, I know it's it.
Yeah. So that's the best way to decide if it's done. If it's good when you're both drunk and sober.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that.
But going back to what you said, when there's nothing left to take away, that's a good point, because, like, to be honest with you, like, I can't, every time I hear a song, I can always think of something like, oh, maybe they could have added an extra note here, or maybe they could have repeated that, but, like, I can't picture Horizon without a single extra note, without a single more note in that guitar solo after the second chorus. I can't picture Regret, you know, being carried on without that vocal intro in the beginning. So it almost seems like you guys really trusted with your gut instincts on this one.
Oh, big time. And that's great to hear, man. For sure.
Yeah, a lot of trial and error though as well, but yeah, that's good to hear from you. That
Thank you.
You know, a lot of people didn't like that beginning of Regret. They made a lot of bad comments about it, but you know, we knew we loved it, so I'm glad to hear you.
Yeah. I think it adds a different type of momentum to the album. It's like able to change things up without changing it too much.
Yeah, and I think too, like, what's really important is not getting stuck in a way of doing a certain genre. You know what I mean? It's kind of old news, but like you can't be like, okay, I'm in a post-black metal band, but I can't do this because this is too this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think, like, especially with Horizon, like, that last lead at the very end is, like, kind of very much from, like, bands like Census Fail.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And, like, even Regret is, like, very much System of a Down. You know, like, it's hard to, for me, and I know for Byron too, to, like, just be like, okay, well, this riff isn't metal enough, or this vocal part isn't black metal enough. You know what I mean? I think it's really important to just be able to and trust yourself to fucking throw every influence you have into it.
Yeah. Well, so it's fair to say, like, because, every time I've interviewed, like, a modern-day black metal band, they'd be like, oh, yeah, we take inspiration from Mayhem or Dark Throne or Emperor or whatever.
Yeah.
But, like, it seems like you guys, and I kind of now see it a little bit in the DNA of this music, too. It almost seems like you guys take a lot of different inspirations from, like, you mentioned in the course of this interview, we talked about Smashing Pumpkins, Census Fail, System of a Down, Blink-182. Like, how did you, like, with your inspiration, end up morphing into this style of music in a way?
I think I don't even really like getting called a black metal band, because I know that's like a big part of our influence, our post black metal anyways. But I think I don't know if this is going to answer your question, but after we did Home, I thought we did as best we could for that kind of genre. So it was so much easier to go into a door going like, well, we're not going to write a Home 2. Even though, like, maybe 10 people will be disappointed about that. But we're going to just kind of say, fuck it, who cares? Let's just add everything that we love and what we feel at the time without any restrictions.
Yeah.
And hopefully it works out. And if it doesn't, well, whatever. We still did exactly what we wanted. And it seems like it worked out pretty good. But, it could have been a real fucking hot mess there if you let too many of those Celine Dion influences get in there.
Oh, man, imagine you tour with Celine Dion.
That'd be amazing.
Yeah, we opened for one tour, but we got kicked off real shortly.
I think my wallet got started jumping out of my pocket at Celine Dion.
Hey, a lot of modern-day pop stars are big metal fans, so...
Yeah, that's true.
So...
I did security once at a Celine Dion concert. That was the closest I got.
Oh, my God.
Lost that job.
Yeah.
I also think it's important, too, to, like when you start saying you're, like, okay, now we're a black metal band. I think it's hard to be able to write a song like Stay. You know what I mean? Because you're like, well, black metal fans are going to like that. And I think when you start writing for those people as opposed to yourself, you put yourself in a pretty precarious situation.
Yeah.
Creatively. You know?
Yeah, it definitely, like, I've heard a lot of people, like, compare, you guys maybe to a band like Deaf Heaven or something like that, or Astronoid, or along those lines, which I think would be a great show if you guys played together. But I also think that with the emotional elements in your music, you have something that maybe kind of makes it stand out a little bit more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I hope so. It's hard to get that identity. You have to make your own voice through so many other great bands that are kind of in the same world as you are. It's important. It's great to hear that we kind of have some sort of identity in the whole cacophony of these bands.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And on that note, I think the reason why we have an identity is because we're all not like that great of musicians. We can only do so much. So instinctively, no matter what we do or what we try to add and mix a bunch of different genres together, it's still going to inherently sound like us.
Yeah.
So I think that's something that we recognized after we did Home, that we could throw in all these kind of weird riffs that maybe shouldn't belong in what a typical post-black metal album would sound like.
Yeah.
So it gave us more confidence to be, okay, do exactly what we feel and then see what happens from it.
Yeah. And I have a few more questions for you guys. One thing I was really curious about is you mentioned that there's a lot of turmoil that you express on this album. Did making this album also bring like a little bit of closure to whatever you were going through at the time? If this is not too personal of a question to ask.
Oh, no, not at all. Like, yeah. For me, like I was an alcoholic and then I quit pretty much, I don't know, like a couple months after in a show, and I've been clean ever since. So it pretty much, yeah, in that aspect changed my life. I don't know about you, Byron.
Yeah, well, for me and a few other members, just a lot of just heartbreak and pain and bullshit of life, and just printing something, just getting it out there, and all of a sudden when it gets released, those songs aren't yours anymore. Those belong to everyone else, and that in a way is very it's a very big part of the healing process. Even though we can still maybe feel a lot of the topics and emotions of the album, it just having it out there and knowing that that's not a piece of us anymore, it's for everyone else, is very a big part of the process.
Of course. When it comes to like playing your material live, I really was hoping to see you in June, but who knows what's going to happen now, thanks to a certain virus that shall not be named. I'm not giving it any promotion on my outlet. But
demonetized.
Yeah, exactly. I've dropped way too many F-bombs on every interview for any of them to be monetized. So, but
that'll play.
And notice how I said F-bombs now with the next. But like when it comes to like playing that material live, does it almost? It's kind of like two questions in one. But is there maybe a similar energy into playing your material live as you did when you wrote it, because it does capture that moment? Does it almost kind of put you back in that emotional state in a way?
For me, definitely.
Yeah, I would agree with that, for sure.
And it's that 1 hour of the day, tough. Sometimes I don't want to get into that zone. I don't want to do it, because it is, to fully be in that zone, you do have to go back into all the emotions and feelings, but I mean, that's the only true way you can play it. We have our bad shows too, and I know it's because one or two of us are not in that zone or don't want to be there to experience that, which is totally understandable too. But I know when we are super tight and in that moment all together and feeding off each other, it's because it's experiencing all those emotions that we did when we were recording it, but also very empowering too, because it's you're all as a team going through it, so you're not alone, I guess. So it shows much better, and I know exactly when we're all in that same mode together, and it's something really beautiful.
To conclude this album, really talking about it, I think the best message behind it is that it's making you use your armor. It's making you use darkness as your armor instead of your anchor. That's the way I'm interpreting it.
That's a great way to put it. I think, scar tissue is a lot stronger than normal tissue. So it is, and especially in this extreme form of emotional representation like black metal or post black metal or extreme metal, any extreme metal, is that you need to have a positive voice, because there is something so much stronger in fighting than giving up, I find. And to be fair, like you go back to something like, because I'm a theater guy, and you go back to Hamlet, and he's like probably in popular culture the epitome of melancholy. But if you go to see Hamlet and the actor comes out in the first scene just completely depressed, then you have nowhere to go. It's so much more exciting and rewarding to watch someone fight for their life. You know what I mean? I think for me, that's what makes this album so, I don't know if enjoyable is the right word for it, but it makes it so much more enjoyable to listen and play, for me. Mm-hmm. I feel.
Yeah, and I'd imagine having a theater background influenced the sound of this incredibly as well, right? Oh,
big time. Yeah. I feel so. I think looking at it from a performance perspective is even too, like from there is like there's so much emotions at a fucking 10, that you kind of have to learn to pace yourself too. Because if you give in and put everything into the first song you're fucked. Like, you're going to be dead by the end of it, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you kind of have to, like, pave a road, like a frictionless path in a way.
Yeah, totally.
Yep.
It's really interesting playing these songs and our old songs, too. The energy from the new songs is just so vastly different from the other songs.
Yeah.
And seeing people feel empowered, it makes you more excited to play that and give that to them like they deserve it just as much as you deserve it. And these songs create more life, so I'm like most part of this album for sure.
Yeah.
Just that kind of interaction with people that they get from it, and they feel that strongly about it.
Yeah. The best way to describe post-black metal is it's evil music for good people.
Hey, I've never heard that. That's pretty good.
It's because I made it up.
Trademark that shit. Put it on the shirt.
We'll go with that one.
Yep, put it on a shirt. Evil music for good people.
Yeah. Oh, that's great, Alex.
Yeah. I gave it to another black metal band too, so use it before they do. It's a race.
Okay, we will.
Yep. All right.
What do you want, 40% or 30?
Well, that's a lot. That's a lot of percent.
Well, let's get ahead of ourselves here.
How's this? If you play a door in full, you could have it for free.
Sick. Deal.
So before we go, I want to thank you guys so much for your time. Just I know that things are a little uncertain now in terms of touring and shows with everything going on. Is there just a way that your fans could support you? Like where can they could find your merch and everything like that?
Yes, we have some new designs that were made for this upcoming tour with Harakiri for this guy. They should be on our store in about a week or two. If they want to support us that way, that'd be great. Or if not, in other ways too, you can hold on to your tickets that you bought for tour, because it's all rescheduled for next year, like right around the same time. So no matter what, we're still going to do this tour.
Yeah.
And then, we still have our Hellfest date coming up, and we have another big tour that's going to be announced fairly soon, but got to keep that under wraps until it is. But coming out to the shows and buying merch is the best way to support us on the road, because it ain't cheap going out there.
Yeah, especially coming from Canada. I do apologize for on behalf of trying to get in here.
Yeah, no worries.
Well,
Yeah.
we're under just for us to cross the border with a signed piece of paper.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys. Thank you guys so much, everybody. We are here with Numenorean. Adore is out now on Season of Mist. Buy it now while supplies last forever, and we'll see you next time on Heavy New York.